Hello, everyone, and welcome to the live judging and winner announcement for the Quarkus Supersonic Subatomic Hackathon. Sorry for the delay getting started. We had some technical difficulties, but we are off and running. So as you may know, based on the opening video we just played, that Java is 25 years old this year. And it has undergone many changes and transformations that have led us to where we are, where it is today. And you may have also noticed in the end of that video that it finished with Quarkus. So Quarkus is quickly becoming the Java developer framework of choice for cloud native development. So the event that you are watching now is the culmination of a lot of great work that you all put into creating some really great applications. The submissions greatly exceeded our expectations. So with that being said, let's get started. Wanted to give you a kind of an overview of what we're going to be doing today. First, we're going to start off and do some highlights and an overview of the hackathon, some interesting tidbits of information there. And then we're going to get into the main event, which is looking at the best overall presentations and having a judging panel discuss those live and talk about what they liked, what they disliked, and comparing and contrasting them. And then we're going to go off and do some tabulations of the scores. And while we're doing that, we're going to present the winners of the subcategories. And in the end, we're going to come back and we're going to give you the winners for the best overall. All right, so I wanted to really quick start with Quarkus. For those who aren't familiar with Quarkus, obviously the driving force behind this hackathon was to bring some awareness, education, and a little fun to Java developers. The Quarkus community is experiencing tremendous growth and excitement as Java developers across the world look to utilize their existing skills and experience for cloud native development. So as you all have seen, if you have participated and submitted, that you've seen firsthand now, the Quarkus' speed, efficiency, and the developer joy are extremely compelling. Interestingly enough, if you have participated, you are now a part of a growing wave of Java developers using and benefiting from Quarkus. So there was a recent study done with the Eclipse Foundation, a developer survey done that developers are quickly moving away from traditional cloud frameworks and rapidly shifting to modern frameworks like Quarkus. And so you'll see here that of the respondents, 16% said they are using the Java framework, and it was only founded in 2019. So in a year's time, 16% of the survey respondents actually are using Quarkus, which is extremely impressive. So we wanted to give you a little bit of an overview of all the great things that happened over the last couple of weeks. So obviously the hackathon ran from June 15th to July 22nd. From a participant perspective and a coding perspective, we had 327 registrants overall, and in the end we had 33 submissions. We apologize. It took us a while to get to this event because the submissions were more than we thought, and they were better than we thought, and we really had to bring in a lot of different minds to take a look at these and make sure we got it right. The participants ranged from over 15 countries, and you'll see some of the specialties and skills here that they had. As you may guess, Java, JavaScript, Python, and Spring were some of the highest identified skill sets. We also did a number of enablement sessions ranging from master courses to the office hours, the opening and closing ceremonies. So overall, there was 8+ hours of training and enablement, which we thought was really valuable. So just to kind of review here. So the app categories were best overall, which we're going to spend a lot of time focusing on here today. But we also had some subcategories for serverless, Kubernetes native, IoT, and modernized applications. So overall, we're going to be giving away $30,000 in prizes today. So $10,000 for the best overall and $5,000 for the individual subcategories. The criteria we'll talk a little bit more in a second here. And here's a list of the judges who we'll go through. And then really there was one thing that I really thought was interesting. Based on this hackathon, there was a couple of bugs identified. There was some pull requests that were actually created for this. So we thought that was really interesting, not only to get people to use it, but actually participating in the community. So great job overall. Okay, let's meet the judges. So we've got Adam Bean, who is a Java champion, author, and consultant. Stephanie Chiris is the VP and General Manager of Red Hat Enterprise Linux, commonly known as RHEL. Jason Green is a Red Hat Distinguished Engineer and Quarkus co-founder. Katya Aresti is a Java champion and Red Hat engineer. And Ken Johnson is the VP of Red Hat Application Services, formerly known as Middleware. So these will be the stars of the show. So wanted to introduce them. And real quick, wanted to make sure everyone knew that what the voting criteria is. So there's four major categories here. Radical innovation. So were there any features or techniques used that had not previously been observed in an existing application? Quarkification, which is kind of a creative way of saying how much did they use Quarkus? How interesting use cases did they have? Really, kind of the meat of it in terms of using the Quarkus framework for this. There's a UI UX element. So, like any other application, is it a good user experience? Is it easy to use and move around and those types of things? And then potential impact. What impact does it have either, say, on customers, the business community, or developers at large? So you hear more about that, obviously, coming up. And so let's get to the finalists. Best overall, if you haven't seen any of the blog posts or the announcements, these are our four finalists that we're going to be reviewing today. So the first finalist is Slurpanize, the second one is Population Health IoT, the third is Weblith, and the fourth is Tidepool. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to do a short video for each of these. So the folks who on the YouTube channel who have not seen this, just so you have an idea or an overview of what the application is, I strongly encourage you to take a look, if you're interested in one of these applications, to look at the DevPost site. Each team submitted a video with their submission, and it goes into much more detail, and it's actually from the developers themselves. We just wanted to create a space where you can kind of have an overview. So with that being said, I'm going to start. The first one is Slurpanize. Our first application is called Slurpanize. Slurpanize is an application created by Erica Gili and Davide Di Domenico. It allows users to place an order at a food festival or from a street food truck vendor. The inspiration for this app was to improve the food truck experience for both the customer and the vendor. So what it does, it is a white labeled application that connects the customer and vendors and is managed by a Telegram bot. So there is no app to install and no need to create an account. From a customer perspective, you have the ability to view all vendor menus, order and pay electronically, get real-time updates on your phone, and see the status of your order in the queue. With the help of the bot, the customer reaches the main menu, selects what to buy, it can be from multiple food trucks, and pays with the smartphone in the chat and waits for notifications from the different food truck vendors to update the status. As a vendor, it allows you to receive electronic payments, view a queued list of orders, organize those orders by their status, and provide real-time updates from new orders coming in. So some of the components that were used to build the application are the Quarkus framework, which is the core of the project. The Telegram bot library offers an abstraction layer from the basic Telegram communication protocol and messages. Artemis ActiveMQ is used for delivering messages into the application and dispatching them via WebSocket. Kubernetes works as an abstraction layer and deployment system. GitLab for project repository and automated Docker image builds, and Postgres SQL with reactive drivers for data storage. All right, so that is an introduction to our first finalist, Slurpanize. And now I am changing over to a view where you should see our expert judges. And also we have James Faulkner is going to moderate the discussion as the judges talk about the submissions. So James, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you very much, Jeff. Hello, everyone. Again, I'm James Faulkner. I work at Red Hat in the product marketing group for application services. And you just saw the first video for our first finalists. We have a number of judges on the panel today. Jeff mentioned their names. I want to kind of go around real quick and just take a minute or so and just introduce yourself, what your role is, and we'll go from there. So I'll just go around the horn. We'll start with Katya. So Katya, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi. Do you hear me well?
Yep.
Yeah, so my name is Katia Aresti, and I work for Red Hat for 3-4 years now, and I was elected Java champion a year ago, more or less. And I'm mainly working for since I started working at Red Hat in Infinispan, doing Infinispan Data Grid, doing all the Java core features, and lately also working a lot on the server console, new console we have. And I've been also working since the beginning on the integration between the extension of Infinispan and Quarkus with other guys on the team.
Awesome, great. Yeah, it's great to have Java champions. We have another one, in fact, on the panel today. So Adam Bean, Adam, you want to introduce yourself?
So hi, I'm Adam Bean, a freelancer. I think the only one without the red hat behind me. But I will fix it after the show. So what I'm doing, proof of concepts, code reviews, projects. So I spend all my time with source code, a little bit time with sometimes trainings and workshops. And I started using Red Hat with actually the Red Hat operating system, and in the very early days. And then I think JBoss from the beginning, and now of course Quarkus. So this is my of course Infinispan, great technology as well.
Awesome, thank you, Adam. And you mentioned Red Hat operating system. So we'll move on naturally to the next celebrity judge here today. So Stephanie Chiras, VP and GM of Red Hat Enterprise Linux, is on with us today. So welcome, Stephanie. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, and I'm happy to be here. So as was mentioned, I lead the Red Hat Enterprise Linux business for Red Hat. I've been with Red Hat for about 2 years, and my background comes more from the hardware side. So I came from the bottom up into the operating system space. But one of the things I love about my job is the seeing how applications, which that's what really matters to customers when they want to run something. That's what gets the work done. How that builds upon all the infrastructure, and loved watching through the videos on the submissions on this, right? Really being able to see how it touches customers, what the value would be, all the way down into the technical on how it was built. So really happy to be here and get a chance to see these videos and talk to everyone about it.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Stephanie. Yeah, I also have a hardware background. I think a lot of folks come from hardware and kind of move up the stack. Really, bringing that expertise from the low level and kind of applying it at the app level. So fantastic to have you on board. We also have another executive, Ken Johnson, is with us. So Ken, take it away. You want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Ken Johnson, VP of the Application Services Business Unit at Red Hat. Application Services used to be called middleware, and that's the broad set of technologies that the group focuses on. As a business unit, what we do is we work with our community partners, we work with our engineering partners to take a lot of that great work that's happening in the community and effectively turn that into products that we can support and stand behind, so people like yourselves and others can build those applications Stephanie was talking about to transform their business and make the business value turn into action. I've been with Red Hat since 2007, which is, I guess that's a long time in Red Hat years. My background has been in kind of the middleware space all along. Data and kind of integration has been my history with Sybase and some other companies before that. So it's great to be here, and like Stephanie mentioned, I'm really impressed with the diversity of the submissions. This is a great showing, and look forward to the discussions that follow here.
Awesome. Okay, and last but certainly not least, one of the core Quarkus creators is on with us. So Jason Green from the Quarkus engineering team. So hello, Jason. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Sure, yeah. Thanks, James. And I'll just want to second what Kim was just saying, that these submissions are amazing. And I mean, I'm always blown away by the Quarkus community and the things that you guys do. So I'm just really happy to be here and to take a look at all this awesome work. Who I am, I'm a distinguished engineer at Red Hat, co-founded the Quarkus project. For Quarkus, I've been here for a while, 15 years, and I used to lead the Wildflag application server project, previously known as JBoss application server, and JBoss EAP. And it's exciting to take the technologies that boost application developers and push them into the cloud in a way that really optimizes your workloads. And so that was really exciting when I looked at these all these different scenarios are all doing that, are all taking applications and pushing them to the next level and running them in these really efficient ways, really taking advantage of the capabilities of the frameworks. So, so great job, guys.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Jason. So these are our celebrity judges. Before we start talking about Slurpinize, I want to say I do work at Red Hat, but I have no idea why I have a red face. My colleague just sent me a screen in the live feed, so I don't know. I'm gonna have to blame Skype, I guess, on that one. But
You do live in Florida, James.
I do live in Florida, and it is quite hot. So yeah, so let's get started with the discussion. So the first app that was up was Slurpinize. This was an app for ordering food, say from food trucks, built on a reactive architecture. Interesting story. At my previous company, we actually used an app like this from one of our community members as an open source company to actually order coffee during one of our big events, and it was a fantastic event built on the technology, LifeRay in this case, and it really worked really well. So I'm happy to see these kinds of apps. So I wanted to sort of open the discussion. Maybe we'll start with Katya. So I know, Katya, you've looked at this app. You've looked at all of them, of course, but kind of wanted to get your feedback and opinions, and everyone feel free to jump in and discuss. But I want to start just with Katya and your outlook and your opinion on this app, Slurpinize.
Yeah, so thanks for giving me the opportunity to start and break the ice. So yeah, I really liked I really liked all these submissions. I was amazed, really amazed of the level and the engagement of every one of them. And starting with this one, the first thing is that I really liked the video explaining the use case of the application. I thought it was really, really exciting, and I could imagine myself using it. And I really liked all the usability of the application and imagining myself asking for food and so on. I was really on it. I really liked it, and I found that the user interface was really good and very intuitive. And after, so I went to the code and I went to the docs. And the documentation is really well explained, how they deploy everything, all the deployment pipeline they are using. I really appreciate this, and it was really easy to go into the code and understand what the architecture actually was. I didn't go on the front-end application so much. I went really into the backend, completely Quarkus, and I really liked how they used Vertex, all the reactive pipeline, and many functionalities, how the code was structured, and so on. So really, really good. If I could add something I missed, is I would expect with this amount of code in the backend, at least some tests. Unit testing and native testing, just a couple of them, maybe just I don't know. I know it's hard. I know it's very hard, and we don't have time. And usually, this is only one of the things I missed. But overall, I really, really loved this submission a lot.
Awesome. Yeah, it's a great story, especially in the times of lockdown and COVID, where not having to do interaction for a long time is a good thing. Maybe I'll switch over to Jason. Jason, your thoughts on Slurpinize?
Yeah, so the video, I have to say the background music was great, but the actual walkthrough was awesome as well. So I really liked the idea of the app, and actually, when the first thing that happened when I saw it is I got hungry. Because it's a really awesome idea. You're going through all these different booths, and I imagine you have lines build up. I've never been to these events in Italy, but it sounds fantastic. And now, whenever we can travel again, I'd love to go there. maybe we'll be able to order it with this app. The Telegram interface was really great. I also loved the embracing reactive. I thought it was a really good architectural paradigm for this use case. There was the usage of PG pool for doing reactive data queries against Postgres, and then integrating Telegram with passing messages with the event bus with Vertex. So technically, I thought it was well done. I thought the code actually looked really nicely structured, very clean, very nicely separated and organized. And I did really appreciate the documentation. I also liked how it kind of went into the operational aspects as well, and how the process was going to be deployed. So all around, it was a great demonstration. I don't really have much to complain about. I mean, the testing, I do understand that. It'd be great, certainly great to have that, just to see how you would integrate testing in the process of delivery, just because you went that extra step with that deployment piece. And so yeah, that's my feedback. Great job.
Awesome. So speaking of testing and quality, maybe we'll switch over to Stephanie. So Stephanie, your thoughts on this app, especially in terms of building high quality applications, but ones that will survive and last long time, and kind of drive that innovation in our industry, and specifically on this app.
Yeah, great. So I definitely agree with the video was great. The walkthrough was great. So kind of getting a clear view of what the customer experience would be on this, I thought was very helpful, and the documentation was really clean. The one piece, tying, James, to your question, was the thing that when I look at an application like this, it requires not only the user to participate, but it also requires the vendors to participate, right? Because this sits sort of in the middle. And one of the things as I was watching it was looking for, is it compelling for me? Because I've been to a lot of these food truck events. I live outside Boston now, but I moved from Austin, Texas, where they take great pride in their food truck events that they have. And so I've been to a lot of these where it is overwhelming when you get there to figure out all the lines and all the people, and everything is spread out, and they give you this little map and you're trying to figure out where to go. Pre-planning would be very helpful, rather than standing in line and wandering, which tended to be a lot of what I ended up doing when I went to them. So I could really initially first see as a user of the application on the front end, how this would bring me value. I really like the UI experience. The thing that in the back of my head was, okay, what is going to compel the food truck participants or the food vendors to participate and pull that and join in the back end? Because this does become a bit of a community event. I could very much see the value in that, particularly in light of COVID, right? There's a lot of value for this for the vendors. So to your point about, will it become self-sustaining? Will it become enduring? It's about not only the user aspect, but kind of those back-end vendors participating. I thought that was great. I thought it would be compelling for food truck vendors to participate in this. I think it'll be challenging. One of the things that was mentioned in the video was, if they need more visibility to screens or more views of it on their cash spot or on their kind of kitchen screen, right, where they see the orders come in. I can see where it would be a little tricky with only 2 people who can fit in a food truck to figure out how they're going to monitor people at the window versus people who are monitoring this. But, with some seamless integration from the vendor participation, I think that could be cleaned up. So I was looking for how they could build an ecosystem. I thought it was compelling on both sides, from the user and the vendor side.
Great. Yeah, totally agree. Especially in this day and age. I saw a news article a couple of days ago that the number of apps popping up on the App Store for food vendors like fast food and other restaurants have really grown. So maybe let's shift over to Ken. So Ken Johnson, your thoughts on this particular app?
Yeah, thinking about it through the hackathon lens, what I really liked about this was the scope of the problem domain was bounded, and the scope of the solution was bounded, in the sense that it didn't rely on a lot of externalities. This is sort of the solution was complete. It considered the vendor, the customer, the solution. It kind of came with the white label mentality that this could, and the sort of the market approach was kind of built into it. So I really liked that it wasn't, what I'll say, too ambitious, right? It was focused, and I really thought that speaks to its likely success. I really liked that you didn't have to have an app, especially when you show up to an event. You're not going to want to install something specific. The ability to do it through web I think was really key. The UX, the presentation, the demo, the way it was done, I found it really easy to follow. Simple. Here's what the customer's seeing. Here's what the vendor experiences. That was just plain and obvious. Really, I think really nicely done, not overdone. I think the UX itself probably could evolve a little bit more as time goes on to be a little bit more polished, given that it's direct, it's a consumer interface, and the people running the food trucks are likely not technicians either. So probably a little bit more simplification, but fantastic for the hackathon.
Again, I think we lost your audio feed.
Yes.
Sorry, did you just lose a little bit of the whole thing?
Yeah, just a little bit.
Oh, sorry. I think I must have bumped the. Sorry, I must have bumped the mute button. Sorry. I say I really like the way it used Quarkus principles. The asynchronous use to communicate between two different displays. That was a fantastic demonstration of Quarkus core principles. Overall, packaged well. Lastly, as Jason also mentioned, including the build process and the deployment workflow, I like that as well. It brought your process to the app as well. So nicely done there.
Awesome. So thanks a lot, Ken. Definitely agree with those points. You mentioned the Quarkus aspect. So lastly, Adam Bean, I wanted to, hopefully if you could chat a little bit about how this app uses Quarkus and how it really impacts our industry with Quarkus and any other thoughts you have, of course. But we really kind of want to focus on the Quarkus stuff as well.
Yeah. So what I forgot to mention during the introduction, I'm also often hired by startups which have some problems, with growing scale, not in terms of terms of CPU and memory, rather than in terms of use cases. So my perspective on all the project is going to be, if I'm the billionaire investor and I will buy the app, is it valuable as it is, and how much has to be done, in order to make it more scalable, to put more developers on the team and stuff like that. So regarding the first app, super nice. So first, it uses Quarkus 1.6.0, which is fine, but we have 1.7 and 1.7.1. So, but this is a criticism to all of the projects. So I would just, out of curiosity, just upgrade the app to the latest Quarkus version and see what happens. What I like a lot during the presentation at the end, the scene where you had the two iPads and one iPhone in the middle. So you saw how this app functions. What I also like a lot is the front end. It is built with React, and I took a look, and it actually uses React hooks, which is very good because it's modern and lean. So you could very quickly evolve the front end. Modern technology. And the backend Quarkus, what's impressive in the Docker folder, and the next thing which interests me, how valuable these applications are as a Quarkus use case for the community. And what we can learn from this app is we have actually the entire YAML configuration from Kubernetes, from messaging over ingress controllers, networking, Postgres, everything is included, which is actually great because you see, how to build Quarkus apps with Kubernetes. Then regarding tests, there are no tests at all, what I don't understand, because we have a REST API, so there's criticism now. And I would, so if they don't have Quarkus tests, I expect they use, Postman or whatever to test the REST API. So I would just check it in because no test is impossible. I cannot test such an app with curl. So I even assume without test, they lost some time, so I would just, add some tests to it because not unit tests, just, black box tests. The code is very clean. What I really like, you see, where Quarkus shines, they have basically one layer, one class, which directly accesses the data layer, but it's not a hack. It is nicely done. One criticism is the code structure. So if I look at the code, the packages as controllers, enumerations, models, repositories, serializers, services, and that's basically it. So the package names don't reveal the functionality, so it won't scale. So after a year or two, if this if this app takes off, what will happen is we will end up having 100 classes in model repository. Also, a little bit pity is we have DTOs, which are actually not needed, and the REST API could be improved. It's not as RESTful as it could be. And one file is checked in with a license header from Apache, which is actually no-go in enterprise projects. I don't know, the entire app is Apache licensed, but if we see something like this in projects, so we have to ask legal department, and this is the beginning of the end. So I would remove this class. This is Maven wrapper downloader, for instance. But other than this, we have a nice use of Quarkus APIs. For instance, we have Mutiny, and also what I really appreciate, this is probably the highest use of microprofile which is a very good thing because there are lots of Jakarta and micro profile developers which will understand, the design out of the box. And so this is the very high standard use with high level of quirkification.
Yes, that's fantastic, Adam. Thank you for the detailed analysis. Good to see the good and bad. Always important to learn and understand what's good and what can be improved. So thanks a lot, all of the judges. So we'll move on to the next app. I'll pass it back to Jeff. Jeff, let's move on to the next finalist.
All right, sounds good. Sounds like there's universal agreement among the judges that if Slurper Nice wins, we all go to Italy to find out our favorite food truck.
No, the trucks have to come to us then.
Sounds good. Well, one thing I wanted to note too is that these finalists are in no particular order, right? Just want to make sure. I don't think I said that to begin with. Okay, so next we are going to go to. Got to remember what the next one is here. We are going to go to the Population Health IoT. So I'm going to show a short video overview of that, and we'll come back to the judges. Next up is the Population Health IoT application written by Joe White. The inspiration for this application came from the ubiquitous nature of health information data today. Cell phones, bracelets, watches, rings, and many other devices are constantly capturing health telemetry. It's a diverse ecosystem with different data formats, different data access, and different data deliveries. The application evaluates and takes action on health information for a specific group of people like employees of a company, a geographic region, or a group of common characteristics. The application architecture creates an efficient serverless and rules-driven architecture that can be used to process health data telemetry from a wide array of devices to allow for common processing and actions within a given population. The architecture consists of 3 Quarkus services. The first is a serverless ETL service to process data, which is then sent to the second service, which is a serverless decision-based service. And lastly, a dashboard for user analytics and user actions. The Health Population IoT demo included for this application is for a wellness program. So the demo application will authenticate and retrieve pedometer data from Google Fit that comes from a personal Galaxy mobile device. And then there's a service that evaluates the data from that pedometer and performs an action based on a set of business rules, such as a reward for reaching a certain number of steps achieved. And lastly, a dashboard displays rewards, alerts, and raw data information. All right, so obviously these summary videos do not do these applications justice. Once again, I encourage you guys to look at these videos that the submitters included. They're really, really good and go into much more detail. Okay, James, back over to you in the judging panel.
All right, thank you very much, Jeff. So second finalist, Population Health IoT. I don't know about you guys, but during lockdown, I could have probably used this app. Less time in the gym, less time walking around, more time sitting. And so, that couple of pounds that might need to come off. And this app's a perfect opportunity for that. So we'll go in reverse order, and we'll start with Adam Bean first. So Adam, your thoughts on Population Health IoT?
Yeah. So the impact, so from the use case perspective, is interesting. But the question is, if from commercial perspective, I think it is really hard to provide added value to the stats. So what I look at these stats, this is like your respiratory rate and heartbeats and whatever. But if you look at the big deals, you have to do a lot more than this. So the question is, can such an app be successful and compete with Garmin, Apple, or whoever? So this is the first thing. But thinking about the use cases transforming into enterprises, so this is actually huge value we can learn from. For instance, the ETL stuff. So the data transaction was implemented as an AWS Lambda, which is actually a great use case for any case of data extraction. what I like, first, I look at the code and it's trivial and say, okay, this is actually not that exciting because almost no code, but this is actually, then I turn it into a pro because this is a minimal code and maximal impact. If you look at the code, there's probably now 5 classes with minimal functionality, but the app is still impressive. What I don't like is the use of Lombok. This is like bytecode generator, and it generates, like 3 getters and setters. So it's absolutely not needed. Other than this, really nice use of Cogito. So this is like the Drools engine. So this is a perfect case. And there's even an half-baked but still working case where Excel sheets can be Excel sheets can be transformed into Drools. Cogito rules. So this is nice, and there's a use of REST clients, micro-profile REST clients, and of course the Google APIs, because this is the entire use case, how to extract data from the fit resources. So what I really like is the minimal code. So it is really like proof of concept with actually high impact. What I don't like is the Lombok, what I already said. Then in the Excel to Drool converter class, there is a hard-coded path. So I would expect, in the future releases to have a conversion service where you can actually submit the Excel sheet and it gets automatically converted to Drools. Then the front end is outdated. So Gulp as a build tool, I would say, is no more up to date, and jQuery is the legacy. So the UI looks nice, but I think if this app will take off, they should convert to React or web components or web standards or whatever, but I don't think they can go with jQuery. And the package structure is bureaucratic again. So it means it is structured around, take a look. This is just, it says from the technical perspective what it is. Like, for instance, we have here client and we have here, but there's no like heartbeats. So there's not, I would organize such an app, around functionality, like, heartbeats or respiratory rate or whatever. This would be my package names and not, saying what's inside. And funny fact, I read, I read the intro from the app, and there was like a respiratory rate from a Google Pro or a Golf Pro. And I read why they watch repository from a Google Pro. I was completely, mispronounced the word, and was completely confused why they could find out from a GitHub repository from Golf Pro that he got corona. So that's funny facts.
Okay. Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you, Adam. So one of the things this app does is it's kind of innovative, and we at Red Hat Enterprise Linux has been innovating for a number of years. So Stephanie, maybe you want to weigh in on sort of some of the innovation aspects of this app, along with other commentary you may have.
Yeah, and following on to what Adam said, I would say my high-level synopsis is very similar to what his was. This is a very busy space. I mean, I think everyone recognizes this health IoT is everywhere, and the value of it, I would say, folks are starting to see it. I liked the example, right, of the Golf Pro at the beginning. There is value to this. I think the question is, one, how do we sort of how do we make the insights actionable from what we're all learning? Because, I mean, when my Apple Watch tells me to breathe, right, it's like, okay, it's minimal value, quite honestly, to tell me to breathe, right? But there are aspects that provide huge value. And so I did see this as kind of I think the space is important. And I think we are at the cusp of where we take this health IoT stuff to be something very valuable. The thing that stuck with me on this one was what Adam said. While that space is very busy, how simple you do it behind, and how you can, and in this case, how Quarkus was used in order to provide a very simple deployment and clean deployment. To me, that just sort of paves the way for how you want to take the customer value and take it into spaces that is easier to scale upon, right? So that kind of simplification to me was the real innovation in how this was done. And I did want to do a shout out on the, I know in the accomplishments that they were proud of, I thought it was great, the pull request on this, right? To me, this is where the hackathon comes in. This is what the community and everyone participating in this leaves Quarkus in a better spot going forward than it was before this hackathon. And that was like hats off, right? That is real value to the community that's sustainable. So I think the use case is a busy space and we're yet to really reap the value of it. But the simplification of how this was built with Quarkus and with the tools that were put in was great. That is going to allow that innovation to sort of blossom as we go forward. I mean, in RHEL, we're constantly looking for ways to simplify so then we can innovate upon that simplification. So that to me was great. And the pull request was the pièce de résistance, so it was great.
and the recipient of that pull request is probably represented here as well. So Jason, you want to give your thoughts on
last sentence? Can I just chime in very quickly? If I saw the use case, what I thought, if this would be like a home automation app, you can apply exactly the same thing. Use Cogito, you just control all your devices in a private way. This would be the perfect case. So actually, if you just slightly change the app, we could find very easily other killer use cases. This is what I thought immediately. This is actually a perfect case for something else, right? Sorry.
Yeah, and you see that a lot, right? You see an application innovating and then someone else taking that work and continuing that innovation and going in a different direction.
Docker happened, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Quarkus itself is an example of that. So Jason, you want to give your thoughts on this app?
Yeah, so I'm glad you said that you jumped in on that, Adam, because it's a great segue to what I was going to say, which is I think the simplification aspect of this app makes it a great example because organizations that are they're looking how do they do digital transformation and do a lot of these really advanced use cases, and you can walk through it and you can see the different services and how they interact and how simple the code is, so that it's not a gargantuan task to do applications like this if you use like technologies and tools that are well suited for this purpose. So from that perspective, I really appreciate it. I thought it was great too to actually see a multi-service microservice application. And then it was cool how how in this one there is a mock service as well, which you can interact with, and so that was a great approach. Also, once again, makes it a good example, to see how you can build these types of applications. The spreadsheet piece is really cool. I always love this angle when you come up with a way to incorporate ability for like a sort of low code input, or someone who's not a hardcore developer can actually get in and influence the application. So if you design your system, this always happens, right? And you have needs that change, you have new teams that come on board, and then you need to find a way to get those things rolled out as quickly as possible. So when you have facilities like that where you can just take a spreadsheet that someone writes the business rules on, and then the application can convert those into actual real functioning logic that happens all the time, that's a sweet spot. And I did agree with what Adam said, that it'd be really awesome if you could upload that spreadsheet. That was probably the one thing I'd ask for that was missing. It was great seeing tests in this example as well, and also seeing everything designed to embrace native in addition to JVM mode, which is great for Quarkus.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Jason. That's fantastic. Yeah, we see a lot of innovation in this area, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in the serverless component later on. But I wanted to quickly jump over to Katja and get her thoughts on this particular app.
Yes, so I think everything has been said almost. I do agree with mostly that has been said. I really like the idea of this application, the dashboard, and how things were built. I was pretty surprised when I came to see the code that there was very simple code. So and it was achieving enormous things just with little. So this was great, and I really liked that this came into being a contributor to Cogito and to Quarkus. So things were fixed on the way of building this application. So for me, it's I'm very happy and not much to complain about it.
Good. I'm sure the team will be happy to hear there's no complaints. So we'll wrap it up with Ken. So Ken, your thoughts?
Sure. Thanks, James. A lot has been said already, so I won't repeat that. We'll +1 the pull request. I think that was awesome. I'm glad to see that. That's just how it should work. So that's really great. I like that it took a broad view of Quarkus. I think one of Quarkus's values, there's the sort of the internal value of Quarkus, like the the reactivity, the asynchronicity of the core, but then there's this ecosystem of technologies around it that kind of complete it. And I like that this used Cogito for many of the reasons described here, and it used Lambda integration. I mean, I think that's a key part of Quarkus. It's how it plays with other technologies, other frameworks and other technologies that are broadly out there in the cloud landscape. I think this is a good example of doing that. So +1 to that as well. I think from a domain perspective, much has been said. I agree it's a crowded space. I think there's some things to consider around data privacy considerations, HIPAA, and other things like that. When you start, there's a series of constraints that just have to be thought through as a product like this or a technology like this comes to market. So just to be aware of that. I think there may be an opportunity to go beyond the kind of alerting to the individual to that population health perspective. Defining populations however you do, whether they're geographic populations or other populations of users, and being able to provide some aggregate assessment of that, I think could be an angle that doesn't compete so much with the individual alert kind of experience that a lot of us are getting through devices and other vendors we're already dealing with. So just a thought for the future. I think there's a lot of ambition here. It could grow into something big. There's a lot of dependencies to make that happen. I won't repeat other things said. Nice job.
Awesome, thank you, Ken. Yeah, in these hackathons we've done several of these, and it's always the case that you don't have enough time. So fantastic to see what folks are thinking about for the future, and hopefully we'll see them back in a future hackathon. Okay, so we're halfway done. So I will pass it back to Jeff, and we'll continue on this show.
All right. Another note that for those on the YouTube channel, the judges are going through when we play these videos, and they are entering their scores in. So we're doing this kind of real time as we go here. They're obviously heavily influenced by the discussion, so this has been great so far. So next up is WebLith. So let me cue up the video introduction for WebLith. The next application is WebLith, submitted by Jay Lanoy. The WebLith hackathon submission is actually a Quarkus extension, so it's a little bit different from the previous submissions. It's an extension that provides Quarkus developers the ability to use the WebLith framework for developing Quarkus applications. So WebLith is a 2-year-old web framework to build Java web applications based on well-known libraries such as Google Juice, Lightbend Config, Undertow, and other libraries. It manages all of the concepts of the plain old-fashioned web applications like form submissions and validation, client-side cookies, templating, and more. The WebLith provides a quick and easy way to create server-side rendered web applications, but it focuses on developer joy through opinionated decisions, which minimizes the number of developer tools needed, it reduces boilerplate code, and even offers nice UI components. WebLith provides controllers and UI components, including tables, forms, including form management, form submission, and form validation, as well as lists. The Quarkus Hackathon provided the opportunity for the WebLith team to replace some of the libraries with Quarkus code. Because of that, they saw tremendous improvements in performance. The initial boot times decreased from 10 seconds to 6 seconds. The restart time decreased from 5 to 7 seconds to roughly a half to 2 seconds, and the code base was reduced by over 20%. Memory footprint was also reduced by about 50% from anywhere from 40 to 60 megabytes before to about 20 to 30 megabytes after Quarkus was included. The developer joy aspect also was achieved through less configuration and context dependency injection usage. All right, we are back to the judging panel. James, back over to you.
All right, thanks, Jeff. So that's our third finalist, weblith.io. This one is it's a little more code technical. It's also one of the finalists in the modernization subcategory. So let's start with Stephanie. Stephanie, your thoughts on this particular app?
Yeah, so as you said, this is a little bit different than some of the others. I think the thing I looked for in this one was it is taking WebLith.io, it's taking it essentially to the next step and trying to figure out how Quarkus could step in to modernize it. The piece that stuck with me on this was when you look for modernization in the code, I think then they called out two of the things that are always important: the simplification of the code, getting rid of the boilerplate aspect, but really that restart time. This is something that I know in RHEL, right, depending upon the use case, if it's an edge use case, if it's a server use case, that startup time is very, very critical, quite honestly, and can play an important role. So from this aspect, and as you said, it was much more about code modernization for Weblith.io. I think the two things that stuck with me, I'd say it does prove and speak to the value of Quarkus from a code simplification aspect, but also from a end result aspect, which is that boot time. So so for those two things, I thought it pointed out the value of to modernization from the Quarkus.
Yeah, absolutely. They did a great job reducing a lot of that code. So I'll throw it over to Jason, unless someone else wants to jump in. No defined order here, but Jason, I know you looked at this one as well and had some thoughts on that.
Sure. Yeah. One of the things that's really interesting about this is it's sort of like a different direction from what we've been looking at in the last examples, right? Where we're talking about the next generation applications. In this case, you're taking a technology that's a more established technology and then modernizing it, making it more efficient. So I agree with a lot of the points that Stephanie was saying, was just that, the simplification of code is really an important aspect. And so it was great to see them bring those concepts in a new way in Quarkus. And one thing that I also want to say is interesting too is that, as part of the community interaction and seeing these examples, these submissions, is it can point out weaknesses that we have in the community as well. So, one of the things that's mentioned is, so two great things I'll talk about this is that they had challenge using the Qt extension for their use case. So that's something we want to reach out to the author and see how we can make that better. But also it's important to extend the ecosystem and support not just a single framework in Quarkus. Like Quarkus, we aim to make everybody happy and be a nice big open place, a nice big ecosystem. And what's really awesome in this submission is that the author wrote extensions for Quarkus, and this is something that we've really been working hard on enabling. And they wrote a FreeMaker extension, or he wrote a FreeMaker extension, which is awesome because it's going to be something that people will want to use when they really like that style or the approach or the semantics of that templating technology versus what we have with Qt. So hats off on that, on those pieces. And architecturally, it was great to see how the technical walkthrough and how the work was done. And also the framework is nice. It has removes a lot of redundancy and boilerplate, so that and allowing people to quickly spin up screens. So I thought it was a really good submission.
Yeah, I in particular was really happy with the FreeMarker stuff because in my last job at LifeRay, I was very dangerous with FreeMarker, and I could get a lot of stuff done in scripting and things that you wouldn't expect. So yeah, again, hats off to the team. So Adam, your thoughts on this one as a coder and an architect?
Yeah. So it is a migration project, is my understanding, but I have to say it looks for me the most Quarkus native. It looks like if it will be written from scratch for Quarkus. So kudos to the developers, I have to say. The code looks clean and the code base is just amazing. What I also like is it's not only one extension, there are multiple extensions, and they are really good ones. For instance, extension, to bundle the assets as a native application. So there is extensions on purpose. What they also have, they are really nice tests, and not only unit and integration tests. They have Quarkus tests where with injectable classes. So this is also nicely done. What code is also nicely packaged around business concepts, and they use a lot of technologies on purpose. So panache, validator, bin validation, so they have input validation already built in, JUnit 5, and some extensions. So my cons were, so negative take is microprofile is not as used as in the other apps, and this is of course Quarkus Hackathon, but Quarkus is a great support for microprofile, and if I can, I use a microprofile as the common programming API, so I'm not too depending of Quarkus internal things. So what I also don't like is actually the use of FreeMarker, because this is why this is not radical innovation for me, because radical innovation would be to have a pull request to Qt, right, or any other template language. So FreeMark is old stuff. It works, but it's old. And the next stuff is server-side rendering with Java. It is perfect for this use case, where this is like a cloud provider, is my understanding, but it's not a broad use case anymore for lots of apps. Then what I also don't see any monitoring or observability in such a framework where you expect, other users. I would using your so this is a scaffold app like Ruby on Rails. So for me, it's like Ruby on Rails for Java. So attempt to replicate that. And they have archetype where you can bootstrap your application. So if I will use WebLift, I would expect more monitoring, which is easily done with microprofile metrics or Prometheus metrics. And so good observability is lacking. And what I also like is the as I said, level of Quarkification is great, and the structure is also nice, and the code is very professionally written.
Oh, James, I think you're on mute.
Yes, it was. Thank you very much, Ken. So thanks, Adam, for the nice blend of pros and cons, good and improve, and areas for improvement. So always nice to hear. So I'll throw it over to Ken. Ken, your thoughts on weblift.io?
Sure. Well, Adam just covered so much. I'll keep mine a little bit briefer to not be redundant. I liked to the points made before that this isn't a end user facing app or application, and this is updating a framework for developers. So the audience is different, the expectation is a little bit different. I think Adam highlighted some of the things done really well given that audience. I think that audience does sort of limit its potential market impact. Try not to penalize it for that, because it wasn't targeted at the broad market. It's targeted at developers who are building server-side web applications. So I think for that audience, it's a really good fit. Clearly the benefit of reduced code boilerplate by 50%, improved startup time, all key to that audience. So I think it aimed at the right buttons to push for the audience it's addressing. I guess in general, I like that it showed Quarkus how it could be used as a foundation for other frameworks, how it does modernize the other things that build on top of it, which then can be used to build applications. I just like that it attacked or brought Quarkus to bear at a lower layer of the architecture than the whole app is built with Quarkus through and through. I think that was just an innovative use of that, and of course the modernization aspect of it as well. I think there was really limited opportunity for a lot of UX and UI, because in fact the tool itself is about building those things, not that you provide that. So I think there was limited UI, but I think you hit the UX from the perspective of what a developer is expecting to do with it. So great.
Awesome. And lastly, Katya, your thoughts?
Yeah, so most of things have been said already. One of the things I lacked, I didn't have time to use the framework. I wanted to just give a try myself, but I really, really, really lacked of time because, as Ken has said, the audience is different. So the audience is like me, building fast an application and so on. And I really appreciate these contributions, doing extensions, this learning, and the code is super professional, and this modernization, getting rid of 50% of the boilerplate code and so on. It's a great example of how you can modernize an application today, and how you can build great stuff using Quarkus as a base, not only for native but also just on JVM mode. You get advantage in every mode developing Java applications today with Quarkus. So it's a great example.
Awesome. Thank you very much, all of the judges. So we're going to move on to our final app. So I'm going to throw it back over to Jeff for the final one.
All right. The final app that we're going to go through is Tidepool. So let me cue up the video there. All right. Enjoy. Our last application is Tidepool, submitted by Doug Moe, Jai Gupta, Priyanka Garg, and SS Kim. The inspiration for the app is that nearly 57% of kids aged 6 to 17 participate in some form of extracurricular activity, creating an opportunity to help these families manage their hectic lifestyles. Tidepool is a community carpool application that provides families with the ability to organize and arrange carpooling, maintain a calendar of events, identify recommended routes, track location, estimate arrival times, and participate in group chats. So this microservices-based application is powered 100% on the back end by Quarkus. It utilizes a reactive Postgres agent to store user data, routes, carpools, and managing search algorithms and queries. It also utilizes reactive streams with Kafka for the location tracking and chat capabilities. And lastly, the application is set up to deploy with Kubernetes on Docker containers to scale, auto-deploy, and self-heal. All right. Yet another impressive app. I'm going to turn it back over to you, James, and the judging panel.
Yep. Thanks, Jeff. So final app, and we'll start with your initial thoughts on this app.
I'm sorry, was that Ken, did you say?
Yeah, Ken Johnson.
Broke up a little bit there. Great. All right, thanks. So I think first thing that struck me about this is there's a lot of thought that's gone on to this app already. This is a kind of a reinvigoration of a fairly complete concept that the team has been working on for quite some time. The use case is well thought out. There's a lot of UI there, a lot of integration of different technologies. So it's mature in concept. So that was that really definitely came across. The write-up was both helpful and amusing in terms of the way it was all presented. So +1 on that. I think the market impact would be somewhat potentially gated by parental concern and so forth. I think getting adoption to a technology like this is going to be a careful navigation. How do you onboard and take feedback from a user community which is highly consumer oriented and build that trust and really listen to them about what's working, what's not. When parents are harried and frayed and trying to make last minute adjustments to schedule, what kinds of things can you do in the app to make that as easy and friendly as possible? And I think the nature of doing things with Quarkus and the front end technologies you've chosen should enable that rapid change. I think that will be essential to the success of the project and the app overall. I think the use of Quarkus on the back end was really strong. I think the front end was quite mature and not really Quarkus centric as much. So I think the Quarkus impact on it was maybe a little bit less than some of the other projects. I think the attention to UI and the use case is great, and you should keep developing and evolving the idea further.
Awesome, thanks, Ken. Appreciate your thoughts on that. So I'll throw it over to Stephanie and get her thoughts on this app.
Yeah, great. Thanks, James, because I want to piggyback on some of the things Ken said. Definitely a well thought out problem, right? The problem definition was really clear. I think the audience that they were targeting was very clear. I viewed this as a bit of a, there's all the broad use cases, right, where everyone's involved, and that creates real concern particularly for parents, right, with who's going to drive your child. So that's too broad. And then you have this really narrow thing, like I'm going to text the one person I know and see if they happen to be going down that way today, or they're going to soccer practice too. And this to me was trying to fit in the middle gap, right? For how do I provide simplicity really to a group of very tight friends, right? Because it's going to be a very small set of parents that I would trust, right, in my carpool kind of circle. So I thought that is a hole. I thought that was a good place to jump in. I think it's going to, the overarching is, it's got to lead with that, I control who is in this group, and I have firm control of that. Once I have firm control of that and I feel confident, this becomes a tool to make my engagement with that small group easier than just individually texting them or group texting them. So I thought there was merit in that. I thought the ability to track where the car was and the ETA time, that was a nice asset, right, that feeds directly to that kind of gap hole. For this kind of an application, the UI experience and the simplification of that experience, that's what it's about, right? It is all about that UI experience. It's got to be that much easier for me to use this tool rather than to text people in a group chat, etc. And I think there's real merit here in that. I do agree with Ken, right? Because I think the time was well placed to put it in the UI because of the problem that was being solved. It does take away from the back end, right, which is really where the Quarkus was being used and demonstrating the value of the Quarkus. But for this solution, the UI is core to it. So I think the problem was really well stated. I think it does provide a hole in the fill a hole that currently exists. So there's real merit and use for it. I think the UI time and attention was well placed in order to do that. I think the other piece that's kind of stuck with me was it felt like this idea had been in their head for a long time, and Quarkus coming in provided them the technology tool to make it real. And that piece I really liked, right? I mean, it's always this great thing when someone identifies a problem and then the technology catches up to provide a simple way to deploy it. So that piece I really appreciated, right? So I think it's the fact that this Quarkus hackathon gave them the opportunity to put it in place is really great, and I applaud taking it forward and continuing that effort on it.
Yeah, and then that's why we do it. It's really great to see these apps, but more importantly, the innovation and the community that's built around a technology, whether it's Quarkus or any others. That the open source DNA in Red Hat is really fantastic to see, and in fact, in our entire industry. So yeah, speaking of the back end, so we'll throw it over to Adam, and maybe Adam, you can talk more about the Quarkus aspects of this app. You're on mute.
First, the front end is unique. The front end of Tidepool is written in Flutter, which is the only true native app. Flutter is really interesting, as Quarkus actually is. So what it means is you can write, the code base once and deploy it on Android and iOS at the same time. So this is really innovative and actually a great choice for the app. So kudos to the user interface. Then regarding the backend, so first, the video was great and the use case, perfect. So it was a great idea. What I was a little bit disappointed is, the name of the package choice. So the name of the package is Acme Reactive CRUD. So Acme, really, I would call it a Tidepool or whatever. So it's like, a little bit sloppy. Then everything is in one package. So it's not nicely organized. But the code is great. So the code is still simple and to the point. Is quirkification is quite high. One thing what I don't like is the data migration of the database is implemented now in post-construct. What I would use is Liquibase or Flyway extension from Quarkus, which comes with native support. Other than that, lots of interesting APIs used, like for instance reactive as well, a health API, open API. What I don't get is Spring DI and Spring Web. Were added as extension, but actually not used. I couldn't find the code for that. So the cons, the flat package structure, what I don't like, the schema migrations are implemented as a homegrown in post-construct, so the table is dropped and recreated. Then the config properties are injected over and over again, so there's some code duplication going on. So, but this can be fixed in a few hours. It's not like a big deal, but I would just I care a little bit more about the code base. If they would really like to take off, I would like to streamline the code base a bit. Then there is no monitoring or no observability. So for me, it would be a no-go to ship an app to the cloud without monitoring. And this is actually a criticism to all of the apps. So there is no observable, it's a black hole actually. No one knows what the apps are doing. And there's no unit tests. So no integration tests, no unit tests, and this complete opposite of WebLive, which is carefully tested as a complete, of course, other scenario. So this is basically my take on that. And what they only have is a rudimentary Flutter widget test, which is also not very, very far. So I think to be successful, you will need more tests.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Adam. Yeah, tests super important. I think several of our apps are getting roasted over the lack of tests. So good.
Except WebLive.
Yeah. Exactly. Except WebLive. Okay, so let's. I'll move over to Katya. Katya's on Tidepool.
Yeah. Yeah, so I really liked the idea of this application. I could imagine myself as well using this. I have a small kid, so yeah, you get into the idea very quickly, and I really liked how it was presented. The video, very good job. Um, but then, because I'm not a front-end developer, yeah, I do front-end because like a side effect, but I'm more interested on backend all the time. So I always jump in the backend and the Quarkus part of the application. And as Adam said, yeah, we see they say it. The team has said that yeah they were learning from the beginning about Quarkus, so they came from zero to manage to finish these functionalities already. So there are some kind of things that could be all the testing, all the packaging, the naming, the code can be cleaned up a little, so it could improve. But overall, I really liked it a lot, and yeah, congratulations to the team because it was really fun to see this application.
Yeah, these apps with fantastic front ends is a treat for us. I think I speak for a lot of folks at Red Hat that as internet plumbing companies, a lot of the demos we do is like a log file flying by. And you're like, look, it worked. See, you're super excited. And it's like, really? So good to see a good front end. So I'll pass it over to Jason for our last set of commentary here.
Yeah, thanks. I agree with everything everybody said. I just want to say, fantastic pitch. I really enjoyed that pitch, and it was great. Like the timing was perfect. Walking through the background of showing the actual use case in action of the driving and everything. It was really well done. It looked like a startup that was happening. I mean, it was great. And then I also really appreciate the UI, and it was cool to see a mobile use case. And so I really like that. And then tying it into Quarkus, and it was great to hear how Quarkus helped address a problem in that space and in scalability. And then there was a lot of thought put towards that. I also like the simple approach and the embracing reactive. So going for like a modern approach was great. One thing that happened though is that when I saw this, I was super excited, and I'm like, I have to try this out. So I have not worked with Flutter before. I knew about it, but I hadn't actually tried it because as somebody was just saying, I'm not primarily a front end person, but every once in a while it's cool to mess with these technologies. And it was awesome being able to do iOS, Android, and so on with the app, and it was working that way. One thing I got stuck on, and maybe this is just me from a UX perspective, is when I first went to enter it, you have to do that little shortcut thing to enter in your IP address. You have to swipe to get into the app, and it just wasn't clear to me because there was like no arrow or something. So really minor nit there. It could just be I'm dumb. So I was like, I don't know what to do. But then then you get into the app, and it was really rich, a lot of functionality in there. I liked the messaging aspect that was tied in, the ability to watch the routes. One thing is it would have been awesome to have some more instructions on how you set this up. I had to do a bit of hacking because there's some hard-coded constants in the code that needed to be changed. Not a big deal, but and then of course it was awesome to read that this was like a first use of Quarkus in this whole thing. So I was really impressed with that. To like you're first looking at the technology and then going right in on this advanced mobile use case. So thanks a lot for that.
Awesome. All right, so that wraps up the finalist discussion. So I'll pass it back over to Jeff.
All right. Yeah, if we had a pitch category for criteria, that they probably spent as much time on the pitch that they did on the code. So that was great to see. Thank you, judges. These were the finalists, right? You can imagine how many great applications didn't even make the cut. We could have spent probably hours going through this. So really enjoyed hearing everyone's opinion. So I'm going to ask the judges on the back end to make sure their scores are entered in. On a side note, it's really funny. I can kind of see the scoreboard. You should see the level of manipulation that's going on in terms of these judges listening to the feedback and input of others. So it's interesting to see where these things is. Think of it like a gauge kind of going up and down. And I can tell you right now, it's really, really close. So what we're going to do, James Faulkner is going to go through and he's going to announce the winners of the categories to give us a little bit of time to make sure the calculations are right and update the presentation so we can announce the winners. So with that being said, James, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Hey, do you see my screen? I should be sharing.
I do. Let me clean up a few things that are... Yeah, you're good to go.
Okay, great. So yeah, so as Jeff mentioned, we had the 4 finalists, and we have 4 different categories for the subcategory, 4 different subcategories. One of the things we really wanted to see was folks taking a stab at a specific use or a class of use cases. So the 4 are serverless, Kubernetes native, IoT, and modernized. And several of the finalists were able to qualify for both a subcategory as well as the overall winner. So we'll go through each category briefly. It'll take 5 or 6 minutes here to kind of talk about them. Some of them we've already talked about, so this shouldn't be a huge surprise. But for the first category, the serverless category, so this is an important aspect of Quarkus because one of the things it does is it really turns Java on its head and undoes a lot of the basic architectural choices made early on in the history of Java over the last 20 years. So Java was built for big iron, where huge amounts of memory, huge amounts of disk, huge amounts of CPU were available, and you wanted to take up as much as possible because you spent a lot of money buying buying the hardware. Today you can get you can rent pretty beefy machines for pennies every hour. And so the entry bar is very low, and the number of new innovations in software development has really grown. So, and Quarkus is a result of that. So we really want to bring the Java world into this world of Kubernetes and containers, constrained environments where you have apps going up and down very quickly. They need to start up fast. They need to take up very little resources. So serverless is sort of a great expression of that. And so it's important to build applications that can scale to zero, that can reduce your cloud costs because you do get a bill even if you're using serverless. There is a server somewhere. So the 2 finalists we had, finalists were, the first one was a Bright Act against domestic violence and a app called Quarkus Classify. So the winner of the serverless subcategory is the Bright Act against domestic violence app. So this app clearly has impact, right? It's developed by a team, and you're able to essentially connect victims with allies and help that they can get and companions to help them through a difficult time. So it's a fantastic story, of course, but also from a technology perspective, it's built with Quarkus, much like all of the other apps we have in the hackathon. This one in particular builds a scalable backend that can be deployed across different geographies, so that you can meet the customer or the victims of domestic violence, if you in this case, where they are. So you have regional or country or language specific help available to them, so they're able to connect up. And so the backend is built on a chat functionality, scalable. They've deployed it on AWS. If you want the demo video on the Quarkus site, or sorry, on the DevPost site for the hackathon, it's a fantastic message-based, event-driven application built with serverless and with Kafka as a backend to store and to manage that stream of messages in a very highly scalable way. Because especially in the times of lockdown, we have there's a lot of challenges that come with people being at home much more than they were in the past. So fantastic to see. Congratulations to the Bright Act Against Domestic Violence application. And so we'll move on to the next category. The next category is, I believe, Kubernetes native. So as I mentioned earlier, Quarkus is built from the ground up to be Kubernetes native and really take advantage of not only the scaling the deployment capabilities and by its very small stature in terms of resource usage, is very minimal to high scale, high distribution. So this category really targeted apps that can be deployed and can be deployed easily and consistently onto a Kubernetes platform. And so the winner of the best Kubernetes native application is Slurpinize. So we've already talked about Slurpinize. It's one of the finalists for the overall application, or the overall winner. So I won't spend too much time here. Again, it's a very great white label applications. In other words, it can be branded for different food trucks, different experiences. It's got the Telegram integration. It's a very powerful platform, very good again in times of lockdown where you don't want to have all that interaction so much. So really great to see this application win the subcategory for best Kubernetes native. And they also did a fantastic job of integrating it into Kubernetes deployment. They built a GitOps workflow. You're able to build and rebuild applications, build them in the containers, test them, and then deploy them out to production. So great to see that extra work above and beyond just the the Quarkification aspects of this application, because ultimately you need to deploy this to a cost, a place where it's not going to cost as much money, cost of and take advantage of the deployment platforms, the modern deployment platforms that we see a lot with Quarkus. So that's that one. The last category is best IoT. This one obviously is an important aspect for the explosion of the devices out there. All of the Amazon Echo Dots and the smart XYZs that we have in the world. Fantastic to see Population Health IoT, again, one of our finalists, win the for best IoT application, taking in all of that health information from various sources for golfers and many other types of people, including myself, that are interested in their health and interested in seeing how they're progressing and getting alerts when things might be going in the wrong direction. So fantastic to see that they're able to that prize home. And then the last subcategory is the modernized, the ability or the taking an application and making it better with Quarkus. Because as I mentioned earlier, Quarkus is a Java framework. We really like to see applications that were written with Java take advantage of the new capabilities that Quarkus brings to the Java space. So having applications that can, and having developers with a minimal learning curve be able to take advantage of that is great to see. So the winner for the best modernized application is Weblith. Again, one we've already talked about, one that was one of the finalists for the overall prize. So fantastic to see. I was really happy to see Weblith, not only the performance benefits that Stephanie mentioned, and also the code reduction, because as you have less code for the same application, that's less of a security attack surface. That's less of a chance for bugs. That's smaller container images. That's faster deployment. So being able to modernize an app with Weblith and reduce the amount of code that you have to worry about as a developer, and more importantly, the amount of code that you have to maintain over time, really has an exponential effect on the overall return on investment on a particular application. So great to see them utilize Quarkus to really bring those cost savings out. So those are our four winners for the serverless Kubernetes native IoT and best modernization application. And so I think I'm going to look at Jeff and see if we're ready to go for the next part. Are we ready to go, Jeff?
We are. So thanks, James, for going through those subcategory winners. James, you can see my screen now, right? I'm sorry, you're not in the YouTube live.
Yep.
Okay, so it was close. It was really, really close. And I saw the judges in their last minute tweaking a few things. It was so close, but let's not be let's not be climactic here. Let's get into it. So the third place was Weblith. So we've seen a lot about Weblith. James just talked about the great use case it was in the extension. So Weblith is third place. Second place is, it wasn't quite a tie, but it was damn close. So I gave second place, or the judges gave second place to Population Health IoT and Tidepool. Once again, it was really, really close, and both applications were great. So they win second place, and that means that first place is Slurpinize.
Yay!
I always wanted to use the applause button there. So Slurpinize, great job, great application. Actually, all four applications were really wonderful. With that being said, really everyone's a winner, right? And not only just with the education experience you got with Quarkus, but also we are providing all of the participants who submitted a application with a $10 gift card to the Quarkus swag store. So we will be following up not only with the finalists and the winners about a couple different things in terms of some blogs and social and those kind of things. We'll also get you obviously take care of the prize money. We're also going to be distributing out these digital gift cards. We'd love to see the Quarkus swag out in the community. Lastly, but most importantly, is a big bunch of thank yous, first and foremost, to the Quarkus community for supporting the questions, supporting the enablement sessions, and all of the thought process that went into this. Secondly, or probably primarily, the participants. Once again, we've said this, you all were amazing in terms of the applications that you created in a short period of time. We're excited for the applications that you've created to continue improving, and we're also excited for what you may create moving forward. DevPost team. So the DevPost team was the host of the hackathon, and they did an unbelievable job making sure it was up and running and helping us learn the process throughout the way. The Red Hat developer team was instrumental with some master courses for enablement and that type of thing. They did a great job. Huge thank you to the judging panel that you saw today. It was incredibly interactive. I was entertained the whole time. Hopefully you all were. So thank you very much to the judges. And lastly, there was another judging committee, a selection committee that took all those great applications and reduced it down to the finalists so that we could have the great experience that we had here today. So with that being said, I'm going to wrap it up, and I want to thank everyone for listening in and participating. We look forward to doing more of these hackathons in the future. We encourage you to keep participating in the community, providing feedback, and creating great applications with Quarkus. So thank you very much, everyone, and have a good rest of your day.